What price would you pay to get that object you've always wanted? It could be yours just by completing a simple prank on your neighbor. Is it worth it? Castle Rock, Maine, home of such Stephen King stories as The Dead Zone, Cujo, Stand By Me, The Dark Half. It has a brand new store where anything you desire could be yours. I just have to make a deal with the devil to get it, though. I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Uncle Do over here.
Hey-o.
My best friend, Randy Kirk.
Hey, everybody.
I'm the Frage. Welcome to the table. Today we're talking all things Needful Things, the 1993 movie based on the 1991 novel. It's a quick turnaround on that one. Let's see. Who hadn't seen this one? That was you, Randy, right?
I had never seen this one.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of nuts.
And it was like, it's been 8 years?
All that long for you.
Oh, for you, 8 years. Okay.
Yeah. When I got together with my missus was the last time. Because we do...
You've been with your wife for 8 years now?
10.
Whoa!
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. Dating 10.
Sure. That's what I meant.
Who would have thought?
Right. Well, it's the 30th anniversary. Interestingly enough, we covered 1993 earlier this year in the series, and this one came up, actually. But we said, let's save it.
Let's save it to where we're going to have fun. Yeah, so we do Stephen King September, because we like to do other horror movies / thriller, scary movies in October.
That's a fun little
it's a good thing
Stephen
to do.
King September. I kind of like that.
And so, she hasn't seen a lot of what I have.
Right.
And so I'll bring like 3 or 4 movies per weekend.
Have you seen a lot of what she has?
Oh, yeah.
Most everything?
Almost everything.
Because Tiff and I are the exact same way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Shout out to Tiff, your wife, Randy.
I like, what was it, 2 Septembers ago, it was Maximum Overdrive, and she was like, what the hell is this? And I was like, you don't know Maximum Overdrive?
But even the most cheesy, like, girly romantic movies, she'll bring in with, and just say, hey, have you seen this movie? Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, I've seen that movie.
But almost any movie I bring, she's...
Well, and
never
there's
seen.
a lot of her favorites now are, things that I've brought, with us.
Right. She recently watched The Green Mile for the first time and loved it, as anyone would.
Right. Hopefully our listeners will agree that we have great taste.
Yeah. It's more really fun if everyone watches along with us beforehand and then joins in on the conversation.
Steve.
Yeah, go ahead.
We're gonna crack into our non-sponsor sponsors. I got Liquid Death and the Hams, and so does Randy.
Oh, that was almost perfect.
You wanna give our disclaimer?
I got a cup of coffee. That doesn't help us at all. Gain sponsorships. So,
brought to you by coffee.
Where's Juan Valdez when you need him?
I am filled to the rim with brim.
You and I went to something that is not in the zeitgeist anymore. Like everybody else at Folgers. You and me.
Nope. 20 years before. I just want to throw out a little disclaimer like we had in the last episode. If you joined us, that really the point of this is not to beat to death the comparisons from the film to the novel. We will talk about the novel. I don't know if you guys have both read the novel. I read it.
This isn't my wheelhouse, right? So you guys are more of horror, suspense, King, and I am the Bachman, fantasy side of it.
Why you gotta label me? You don't know me.
I read it sophomore year.
Okay, so that was a long 20 years ago.
Yeah, long time ago.
I don't know if... we're obviously going to talk about some comparisons to the book, because there are some major differences, but really we're here to talk about the movie version, which is what this podcast is all about, is movies that we've never seen, and Randy's never seen it. So I guess preconceived notions about this movie. Randy, I guess we'll start with you since you've never seen it. Having read the book, 20 years ago, and maybe remember. I don't know how much you remembered of it, but
yeah, you better start because I'm going to go on a thesis.
Oh shit!
I mean, I remembered a fair amount. You released the gist of it, and my preconceived notions on the movie. We're just... I remember the trailer before, a few VHS tapes back in the day.
I've got this written down.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was heavily promoted, I feel like.
Well, and it was promoted as kind of lighthearted. Do you remember that? I just rewatched the trailer today because I wanted to double check because I wrote that down. I wrote that down.
I read it good.
I wrote that down as part of the same thing with you, preconceived notion trailer. I was like, this seemed a little bit more slapsticky, all oddball-y. It kind of reminded me of that Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd with Demi Moore. Do you guys remember that?
Nothing But Trouble.
Nothing But Trouble.
Sure.
Right. It had that same sort of music, and it gave that sort of same feel for that trailer.
Yeah, I feel like it didn't really pick a lane where it needed to go in as far as like marketing the movie But
was it more? I haven't watched the trailer. Is it more focused on the cast, like as a vehicle for Ed Harris and
I remember
Max?
it being about the town of Castle Rock.
Yeah, it was like
that playing a part in the trailer.
Welcome to the little sleepy town of Castle Rock, Maine, where everybody and it goes person to person.
Oh,
and then there's a new shop around, the Needful Things.
Did you go back and rewatch the trailer?
I told you, I just did because I wanted to double check.
So I have not.
Yeah,
I haven't seen the trailer in almost 30 years, or it has been 30 years.
Listen to the next one. While we're exporting this episode, we'll go and watch the trailer.
Well, as we are releasing this episode, the 4K of Needful Things has just dropped this week.
That's what I want to look fucking up.
So
I'm sure they did did a great job.
Yeah, obviously we're recording a little bit ahead of time, so we haven't had a chance to look at it yet. Hopefully you pick up a copy of Needful Things in 4K this week and watched it, and now you can go and listen to us. But I'm interested to know if they put the trailer on the packaging for that, because that'd be a fun little insert.
They probably did, yeah. But preconceived.
So May 15th, Kino said that the 3-hour cut's going to be on the UK.
Are you
on the 4K?
That's
4K.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
that was one of the big things. Are they going to include? Apparently, there was a 3-hour cut. There was a made for TV,
which I will talk. It's the TBS. I call it the TBS Superstation cut because that's exactly what it was made.
So it's the director's cut that wasn't really supposed to be a director's cut.
Right. So fun facts with Uncle Do. Pre getting into it.
Insert theme song here.
Chuck Heston's kid said, "I don't really think this is a director's cut. This is just what I was obligated to put out."
So it was just stuff that he had shot. Mm-hmm. And they edited out for time.
Right, because Needful Things, there's a lot more elaborate in the book. I think fantastically, the movie did the story justice.
Okay. Well, interestingly enough, I put that in my preconceived notions.
Sure.
I have read this novel. It's 700 pages. I've read this novel twice in my life. Both times that I read the novel, I watched the movie immediately afterward.
Yeah.
Just because that's something that I would do. And both times, I felt kind of on the movie.
Okay.
And so my memory of this is that it wasn't as faithful to the story, and it was just kind of okay for me.
Sure.
And I was actually really excited for this project because it was the first time I was going to watch it without having that in my immediate brain.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to, I can actually view it as a movie and not an adaptation. And I'm an adaptation apologist, as we all know. By we all, I mean you two. That I am probably the least picky when it comes to changes, because I understand the difference between a movie and a book.
Just to hop back into my preconceived.
Yep, let's get in there.
So not only with the trailer, right? It was a lot more slapsticky to me. It felt a little bit more comedy when I was a kid. And so I never, it wasn't really in my wheelhouse. This is also one of those, it's a less than king tale, right? So the basis of Needful Things, without giving any spoilers, is a thing that has been, it's like an homage, right? This story has been told since the 1800s. We have...
Is this like the monkey's paw thing?
Sort of. I jump it in with the Mysterious Stranger by Mark Twain. A young...
When's the last time you read The Mysterious Stranger by Mark Twain?
I absolutely love The Mysterious... It's unfinished, actually.
Okay.
I absolutely love The Mysterious Stranger by Mark Twain. The whole lore and the...
And the King has also touched on a mysterious stranger with an antique shop before,
right?
So this is not uncharted.
But this is that same thing. Ray Bradbury with Something Wicked This Way Comes. It's something that has been brought to the zeitgeist, as it were, as a story, and it's just King's turn to
tell it.
to tell it.
But King is great at the small town. I want to introduce you to 400 characters that all live in this small town, and you care about all of them, and shit happens to all of them. And really, to me, it's more about that, at least in the novel.
Fun facts with Uncle Do. Needful Things, set in Castle Rock, Maine. As you said, Stand By Me. Production company, Castle Rock Entertainment, was so notedly named for Castle Rock the town, but this is the only film set in Castle Rock produced by Castle Rock.
Yeah, I read that one too. I thought that was cool. I'm surprised by it.
Right, that's interesting.
And Castle Rock, isn't that that's Meathead, right?
Yeah,
that's Reiner.
Sure
which is interesting because Stand By Me was a Reiner, right?
Yeah,
right. But
it wasn't. It was pre-production.
That was Columbia TriStar.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
But Reiner.
Yeah.
But Reiner, yeah.
And that's where he got it, was Castle Rock Entertainment from Stand By Me.
From there, and Stephen King stole it from Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
Because Castle Rock is the mountain that all the boys go live on in their island. Or that's like their fort or whatever.
But I think, my preconceived is that, by the time I became aware of this, I had seen the previews or the trailers when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But by the time I became aware of what it was, based on a book, I think I was just intrigued by, I guess, bigger and better things.
Sure.
Because there were so many King things by that time, books and films that I could go watch, and then the continuous King train that just never stops. It's like, this year we're going to have another book and there's another movie.
So cherry on top of yours. So this is a time, right, in that, so we talked about the 3-hour TBS, right? It was that event. And Stephen King's works were seen because in that 90s, 80s era, it was this there was no content, right? 65 maybe channels of premium cable, where we now, I think I had counted today, 530 channels.
Wow.
Right? So there was no competition whatsoever, and so The Stand, Storm of the Century, all of those were events, right? Like,
yeah, Rose Red was another one later on. All of those happened after this.
This multi-night thing. It was one of those things. There was nothing streaming.
This was kind of the kickoff to that,
right? Yeah. There was no streaming, and so these events were like something huge.
Yeah.
So just a cherry on top of your preconceived. Sorry.
No, that's great. I'm glad you brought it up. But it's just by the time I really became aware of it, there was just so much King. By age 10, like say 96. I mean, there was just so much King around.
And there's more now than there ever was.
Yeah,
which is interesting
and fantastic, if you ask me.
Most of it is pretty fantastic. Some of it not so much.
Within the last, I'd say 5-10 years, we have started getting
quality King.
King.
Except for the Stan miniseries, which we all shit on.
Except for the Stan miniseries.
And I love, doing a callback to our previous episode, you had talked about King, possibly being doped up on some things, or having an accident here or there and recovering from those things. So he had some struggles, we'll say.
This fun fact with Uncle Frage, this is the first novel that came out after he got sober.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he probably always knew, that he was this king of horror, but I think it was really in the last 10 years, 15 years that he became aware of the Stephen King brand, like the following. Yeah. Not just to say, hey, I can get this book turned into a movie, but like he became aware of the King.
Well, because it was always a thing, right? He wasn't very up until like the computers and online.
The computers
became like this thing.
You old man.
He really didn't engage with the fans.
Yeah.
Right? Until he had message boards, until he started using the World Wide Web as this sort of harness, it was a very thing. Like, I remember my second trip to Maine, when we were in Bar Harbor, when I went to family. I was second grade, maybe, and we took my sister drove us around Bar Harbor, and she's talking about all the great things. We see Paul Bunyan, and she takes us by Stephen King's
You mean
house.
Bangor?
Bangor, right. They all have B names.
B-Main.
Yeah. So, in Bangor, so she drives us by Stephen King's house. And I said, oh, that must be really fun during Halloween.
Right.
And she went, absolutely not. Nobody knocks on his door because he doesn't decorate and he doesn't have any interaction during Halloween. And I was like, okay. And so...
Yeah, but the lore, though, is that, like, if you run into him at the grocery store, he's
Right.
his nicest guy ever.
Right. But, preconceived notion as, second grader, Stephen King...
Is an asshole?
Well, not as an asshole, he just isn't with the fans.
He was a recluse.
Right.
Got it. Got it. And that would have been around the time that this movie came out.
Right.
So, or I'm sorry, the book was written.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you were...
91, 92.
Yeah, if you were in that... Exactly.
That's
he
when
was
that's-
just coming out of his coke high.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's probably why he didn't do Halloween.
Well, sure.
And then after the accident that he had a few years later, chances are...
What is it? The demons.
Trick or treat, paintball.
Now there's a story idea.
Could be a trick or a treat.
Yeah, both. So yeah, we usually like to break this down as far as like the lens of the Oscars. We usually kind of start talking technical stuff, cinematography, screenwriting, special effects, all of those kind of.
So, next fun fact with Uncle Drew.
Yeah,
Sorry,
you've got them all lined up. Like lines of coke.
Technical, right? It's all encompassing within the technical. So we live in a society right now that decries nepotism. I only take issue with nepotism when it's like that check can't get cashed, right? Like here's this,
or they don't do their legacy justice,
right?
It's like, oh, come on.
Like Jamie Lee Curtis is friggin' fantastic, and in that same vein, we have a lot of nepotism on this film.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis might be better than both of her parents combined.
Absolutely agree.
I might catch some shit for that, but I think
that's a hot take, but I agree with it.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly. Yeah, that is a hot take. But
both big stars in their day, but I mean,
right.
she's a huge star.
Right.
It's funny that you say that because I assume you're talking about the director being the son of Charlton Heston.
Oh, not just that.
Go ahead.
So we have.
Oh wait, there's more.
So we have old Frasier Heston. His name is Frasier Heston.
Okay.
Right.
No relation. Interestingly enough, that's the next movie we're talking about.
Baby Moses.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
months old.
Yeah. Chuck Heston's
I don't
kid.
think I knew that. He Coppola'd that with the baby and
He did.
Was
Chuck's
that
boy.
before Godfather?
We got
it was, okay.
Amanda Plummer.
Yep.
Daughter of Herr Von Trapp.
Right.
And
Honey
then,
Bunny.
Honey Bunny.
Mrs. McLean, Mrs. John McLean, good old Bonnie Bedelia. It's kind of reverse nepotism, right?
Right, because she's the aunt of Macaulay Culkin.
Right, every stinking Culkin that is now popular and so on and so forth.
Macaulay got her that role.
So, no, it's the other way around. Like,
kidding.
Fresh off of the good side.
I am a big fan of Bonnie Bedelia, by the way.
So am I.
I liked Amelia Bedelia when I was a kid.
Fuck you. Fuck you. I'm very pro Mrs. John McClane. So
yeah, so am I.
So huge amount of there's also other little bit persons in the films that were also on other films.
So you're saying that anybody that's related to anybody got the job because of somebody else that they were related to?
There's a little nepotism, yeah.
I mean, I could argue the Heston, but I can't argue. I'm going to argue that all the rest of them are just because they're actors.
Ed Harris is married to Amy Madigan.
Right, Amy Madigan was in Bag of Bones.
Well, so what?
What about Von Sydow?
He was King of Kings. He was Jesus in the King of Kings.
No, fair. Because there was a bit of trivia that I read about that where Heston was talking to Von Sydow about something, and it was Moses telling Jesus how to act or something.
How to be the devil.
How to be the devil. Ha,
yeah,
ha, ha.
yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny too.
But
I think the most egregious
the
is the directing, though, right? The son of Charlton Heston,
yeah,
who, as far as I know, put Charlton Heston in all of his movies prior to this?
This is like one of 2 films that Chuck Heston's not in.
He didn't make a lot of movies.
No.
Frasier Heston. Not a lot of good ones.
No. Has not made many since.
Well, when did Charlton Heston die?
Oh,
anybody know?
Early 2000s.
Okay, so he was still alive for this and could have very well been.
I think the Marky Mark Planet of the Apes was his last role. The voiceover in Armageddon was like his official.
I see.
Yeah. We see.
James. Yeah, so he could have very easily been Leland Gaunt in this movie.
Oh, absolutely, but...
And I am glad that he wasn't.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I actually agree with that as well. I'm just thinking about, the nepotism.
That's later for the acting.
True. Yeah, you talked about Plummer. We'll talk about acting there, too.
Yeah.
So I guess, we'll talk... We go into the technicals here, and I guess this could be, writing, editing, whatever. We'll talk some of the technical stuff, but really pacing. And within 2 minutes, you know exactly what you're getting. You know exactly the kind of movie that you're going to be set up with. And I thought it was great. I thought the setup was so good. It was so quintessential Stephen King. I loved the setup. The pacing was perfect for the first probably half of the movie.
Absolutely
it was
agree.
Great.
I would agree with that. I wrote down as far as pacing goes that they were very lopsided on deals versus deeds.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of off-putting, like knowing the story. Like, granted, I didn't have that direct comparison, mindset, but knowing the general idea of the story, I thought, even as if somebody's brand new to this story and has never seen it before, they've seen like 8 different people make a purchase and agree to whatever, but only one person has been told what to do. And I thought, ooh, maybe they should have changed that up a little bit. But I did think that the montage aspect of it really kind of showed his reach on the town, and therefore it was kind of okay with me.
Well, also the devil aspects, that the devil can reach some people and not others.
I think we see the Brian Doerr.
What does that mean?
The little boy at the beginning. We see that, and we see the drunk guy.
Well, right, because they're easily
we see those deeds
coerced.
A lot more
than
we see, say, the preachers and whatnot.
Yeah, I like that. 'Cause, an 11-year-old kid or a drunk, it's like, hey, you want these things. I'm gonna entice you. So I thought that was well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily have to show all of them all the time.
Right.
You got to let it breathe for the second half of the movie, which I did think that the pacing on the 2 priests was great. It was subtle enough throughout, and then when it comes to a head at the end, it's like the perfect timing.
Sure.
So I really did think that was great. But yeah, I agree that the drunk and the kid are both people who are in need, or in want, we'll say.
Yeah.
Not in need, in want.
Right.
And what perfect people to prey on are the people that want things the most.
Yeah. Gullible or inebriated, or both. Yeah.
Right. Or naive, I guess, in the kid's case.
So, fun fact with Uncle Dew.
Please.
Poor Brian.
Ryan Rusk, I think.
Yeah. Change from the book to the film because it was such a downer in the book. We have Brian survive.
Yep. I wrote that. I wrote that down in the book. He does actually commit suicide.
Right.
A lot more bleak in the book.
Well, King is bleak.
Yeah.
But
we also miss aspects of things like No Ace Merrill. How great would that have been? I mean, at this time, Kiefer would have been way too big to be in Needful Things.
Maybe not.
93?
Well, he did The Vanishing, and he did some kind of B movies in the early 90s.
Well, I like that Dead Game that he was with his soon-to-be betrothed Pretty Woman father.
What are you talking about?
Julia Roberts?
Yeah, the one where they kill themselves and then they wake up and they...
Flatliners.
Yeah. Now, again, as an adaptation apologist, I understand. You got to trim some fat.
Sure. And
maybe it's not fat, but you got to curtail it a little bit. And I was going to say, the fact that they had the kid live from the suicide attempt, I think was totally fine. You got the message across that he was guilty or feeling guilty, not actually guilty. He was feeling guilt, and the guilt led him to that decision.
Yeah.
Why go through the extra,
the dirty details.
The dirty, right? Let's show the emotion, and then give it a slightly happy ending.
Sure.
I was fine with that. What I wasn't fine with is that they never went back to him. You know, because Ed Harris, he could have gone back and had a conversation with them or had that aha moment.
Yeah.
Where
that's the link to put all of the...
Right.
You did this for you. And
instead, Ed Harris is just going down, it's just this wild goose chase.
Right.
And it's like, well, the kids survive, so...
Right.
Now, do you think that has anything to do with the story only taking place over like 72 hours and maybe that wasn't well communicated in the movie?
It's possible. I mean, I think a few things weren't.
Because they do say at the end, like when Ed Harris, he, pronouns pal, is going in the town square at the end and he's yelling at the townspeople about, like, why are we behaving this way?
Yeah.
He does say something to the effect of, like, all of these murders have happened in the last 3 days or something.
Yeah.
Which actually brings home, and you kind of go, oh yeah, I guess it has only been, maybe when you're reading it, and I don't remember, that is more in your mind.
I don't remember that either. I don't remember being so condensed like that.
No, because it's 770 pages.
Right. Yeah. So it's drawn out. So maybe to that point, the character didn't really have time to go back because he was dealing with so much other shit.
King has this thing where he plays wonky with time too.
A little bit, but I mean, he didn't write the screenplay for this one.
No, thank God.
Well, now this is another one that would be interesting to do in long form, which is why I'm so excited to see this 3-hour cut.
The TBS cut, yeah.
Right, like what's in there?
The Superstation cut.
Right, because it's a good 45 minutes longer, right? At least.
Yeah.
I don't know. It definitely doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be that long. So I wonder what they could have.
From what I read, it has a lot to do with a little bit more back and forth between a lot more townspeople.
All right, I like that.
We see a lot more interaction with Max von Sydow, I think, is what was talked about. Yeah, so I'm very, very, very interested in seeing it.
And it really drove me nuts that the location that they used for this shop looks more like a fucking hotel than it does a small town shop.
Fucking bed and breakfast.
It's a bed and breakfast. Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Like, holy Christ!
I'm thinking of a pawn shop. Like when I'm reading Needful Things. Yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree with you though.
When I'm reading Needful Things, I'm thinking of pawn shops. I'm thinking glass cases. I'm thinking they see their needful thing, they have that flash. And then that's where that entice is.
I do remember from the book, and again, this one's becoming more of a comparison, but we don't mean it to be.
Yeah.
But I remember in the book that it was very deliberately shown or described that he was using like trash items and using magic to make them appear to be something else.
Sure.
Not the actual objects. And that didn't come across to me like in the movie. Like that. It almost appeared that he actually owned these items.
Right.
And
there was no mystical aspect of it.
Right.
And we don't know if it was budgetary reasons that they didn't do that we just had Leland Gaunt give off these things that there was no mysticism of that.
Right, but he didn't need to do it in a bed and breakfast.
Right.
Like, I thought that the diner felt more small town.
Sure.
There were lots of locations in the movie that could have been like the store.
Would it have been unheard of for Leland Gaunt to go in and take over the Five and Dime that maybe just closed?
Right, something like that. Yeah,
yeah, that would have been a little bit better.
Yes.
Yeah, like you said, they didn't utilize all that space anyway.
Right.
So he didn't need it. Honestly, if it was a
we're just over at Leland Gaunt's fucking house, like looking in his library.
A home. It could have been like whatever.
Seriously,
so many things that it could have been, and it was too big.
It felt
weird.
A little disjointed.
It was weird.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Again, a few similarities to Salem's Lot there, with the mysterious stranger and the antique shop.
Well, technically, in the beginning, we open up with the car, right? Mm-hmm. It goes back to, I mean, it's a famous shot, right? You'll hear in our next episode, we talk about that shot, that shining shot going up through Estes, like winding through the roads over the water to the. It's damn near shot-for-shot remake of The Shining shot at the opening of Needful Things.
Well, that's a very common shot in general, not just in Stephen King movies. But he, I don't know. You're right.
That's a cool shot. And the Mercedes is so...
The Mercedes was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. And it's kind of a King thing more so the long shot,
Yeah.
but the car, a vehicle, whatever, entering the small town with the name of the small town, and you've like crossed into the city limits where now it's dangerous. Like that.
I'm not going to lie to you. I on the rewatch, I went, why does this look so fucking familiar? And I stopped Needful Things and I went and started The Shining, which is, we'll speak on that later, which is very rare for me. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, yep. And then I shut that off immediately.
Rare. You love to speak on things later.
Yeah.
The Shining. and then I went back to the Needful Things and I'm like, Frasier Heston, you old... Yeah. You know I did that immediately because of
a salty dog?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You old so-and-so.
One of the... I love that one. One of the things that I absolutely loved about the technical aspect was the score.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
Like, again, I've said this before, that I don't really notice a score a lot. Randy, you're very attuned to the score, being a musician yourself.
I love it.
And this one really stood out to me in a lot of ways. I loved the way that the score went from being like super playful and then turning sinister, like in the same breath.
I was getting a lot of pangs of Elfman Beetlejuice.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I'm in it, with the music.
And then
probably makes a little bit of sense. Inspired by, sure.
And then they put the cherry on the top with the Ave Maria. Fuck yes. Ave Maria was perfect for Leland Gaunt, in my opinion.
I agree. It was funny too because you talk about Amanda Plummer and he was humming or singing, a few of my favorite things.
Yeah. Fun fact.
You're talking about the nepotism.
Yeah.
Right. Which it ended up getting a credit at the end because if you hum it, you got to hum a few bars and then you put it in the credits.
So since we're talking about everybody, why don't we get out of technical and roll into acting?
Oh sure.
I am a mark for a German bad guy or like an Aryan.
You're a mark.
An Aryan like bad guy. So like Max von Sydow, Otto Preminger, Werner Herzog, Joss Auckland. Come on, Hans from the Mighty Duck. Lethal Weapon 2. Like, sign me up for these old blonde.
Diplomatic immunity.
I was just going to say that.
White-haired, like, just evil-looking dudes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, sign me up yesterday. Max von Sydow could not be the most perfect, like, devil.
Dude, he was amazing.
Yeah.
I put on here that he was mesmerizing.
Yeah.
Because really, not quite towards the end, but every scene that he was in for at least the first half, maybe even longer, you're just completely drawn into every word that he has to say.
So
they did a great job with his fingernails being long and gross.
So
and
this might
devilish.
be a hot take, right? So everybody, Bela Lugosi is going to have a special place in my heart as Dracula.
As who?
Dracula.
Okay.
Dracula.
But I'm a Christopher Lee guy. Like, there's something very, very like romanticized when it comes to Christopher Lee's Dracula, and Max von Sydow in that same sort of Christopher Lee Dracula, sort of mesmerizing, charming sort of being.
That's the right second choice, I think. Lee and Lugosi, those are the two. Von Sydow, though,
he also couldn't sing.
Yeah, I kind of got those vibes a little bit.
Sorry.
He just kind of commanded. Like I said, every scene he was in, I was in. It was just... He was perfect.
Well, I agree. I think he was kind of the star of the movie. Although, Ed Harris is great in it.
I'm an Ed Harris. Well, only up until maybe the last 15 years have I been like pro Ed Harris.
Really?
But he's Ed Harris playing Ed Harris.
I associated with the like sports movie Ed Harris, and you're like, oh, this guy.
I guess. But you're right. He only plays Ed Harris.
I like Ed Harris, but yeah, you can only see Ed Harris.
I'm an Alan Pangborn.
Pangborn, yeah.
Pangborn.
Yeah.
I've had a few hams lately.
Yeah, he has had a few.
Ham-a-lambs.
So I'm a mark for Alan. Like,
sure.
I loved it in
Dark Half.
Dark Half, Castle Rock, like all of it. I was like, yep, let's keep going back to this well because this is a guy.
It's a good character.
Yeah, that he is tortured and angsty, and he is the savior of this town. Like, I'm in it, like, everywhere.
It's funny because when I think of that character, like from the novel or whatever, I feel like it's more of a Clint Eastwood type character.
Okay.
The sheriff, Pangborn.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So when they went Ed Harris, I was like, oh, that's it. That's different. But okay, tell me a story. That's my rule.
Well, King is very, very Eastwood, like
a little bit. Yeah. So I don't know. I thought Ed Harris did a great job as that role.
Yeah.
And I would say actually, number 2 behind Max von Sydow is J.T. Walsh, in my opinion.
What a heel. I mean, he's a great heel in every movie he's ever
Buster.
Heel, but son of a bitch, yeah.
J.T. Walsh has almost a perfect record. And, just thinking, like some of his other famous roles in A Few Good Men or Sling Blade or whatever.
Absolutely.
Like, even though he's in those for just mere minutes, like he steals the scene in Sling Blade or in A Few Good Men, and he has a much bigger role in this. And just what a treasure he was. Just it like acting for him was just easy. Yeah. He made it look easy.
Yep.
And it's clearly not easy.
Yeah.
But
he had some great lines too.
He did have some great lines.
Yeah, I agree. J.T. Walsh was awesome, and then Amanda Plummer.
Yeah, this is peak Plummer.
Freakishly good. Like she either she's just off her rocker in real life, or she plays that so well.
I was
Fisher King.
I was happy that they gave her the main accent. I was kind of disappointed that more people didn't have the main accent.
Yeah, they kind of missed on that.
It's real hard to hit, though.
It is hard to hit. You're right, but
been to Maine.
Yeah, but when it's like Boston, but definitely different. It's Canadian Boston, which is weird, and but it's very specific, and more people should have it, I think, in the movie than
going to the bar.
Well, right. It's not just the bar.
Yeah.
But it's a Swedish bar.
Yeah.
There's a roller coaster in there. And to your point, Amanda Plummer nailed it.
Yeah.
Like she was creepy, but also charming.
Yeah.
And
I love Harrison Bedelia, but I don't think they have the range to hit that.
I didn't think that they had the chemistry.
There was no chemistry
that I remember.
No.
Like, you didn't buy that they were a couple about to be married.
Well,
in my opinion.
Even at the end of the movie, you didn't buy that they were. Oh, these two are in love.
So in the book, I know we keep going back to that well.
Well, it's fine.
Alan is so. What we don't see really in the movie is he's distraught over the loss of his deceased wife and son, who he lost in a car accident. Right. It's in the book. It's a little bit more. He's still.
Did that happen in the dark half, or was it before that? Even I don't remember.
I think it was dark half. Don't quote me. It's been a while since I read dark half.
Yeah, agreed. Me too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that would have made a little bit more sense if there was more build up, because it was like the first scene or two.
But even in that, there's a little bit cut off. There's a little bit like in the book there is that. But
like,
they don't explain it
right
enough.
Away. Right, one of the first things you see is him. Oh, I can't commit to things, but hey, will you marry me? It's like, wait, was there a struggle with this idea?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing here?
Right. The fact that he proposed at the lunch counter makes it seem like maybe this isn't as serious of a relationship as it should be.
Right.
Yeah, it was definitely a little off. Now, both of them were just fine, as far as acting goes, and doing their job and telling the story. But I don't know. I didn't necessarily think that their relationship was good enough to be in trouble later on. I kind of didn't care when...
No, and even
it's no Die Hard where you really think Bruce is going to walk through glass to get to Bonnie Bedelia.
Absolutely.
Even when Cito gives her the necklace,
amulet
and
thing,
he's really like seducing her almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Then that, Ed Harris, you would think like would maybe take that more seriously, he kind of didn't. He was more interested in the amulet thing. Yeah. They're like, what is this? Oh, this is an evil object. Get this off you. And it was like, that's not the route you should be taking. It was weird.
Yeah, that's maybe a writing thing. That, I don't know if it comes. I don't remember if it comes across that way in the novel or not. But in the movie, like as a kind of an independent viewer, you look at it. just a cinematic vacuum, you're like, yeah, I don't really understand what you two are talking about here.
Before we get too far off of that, though, where he does propose, I thought it was funny when she's about to try on the ring in the back of the restaurant there, and he says, I got it off the TV.
Yeah.
That is so funny. That's just what people used to say, like QVC or home shopping. I got it off the TV.
I mean, let's be honest here. Your mother is the biggest QVC advocate that anybody's ever met.
Oh man, 90s we were hard QVC.
Yep.
Like
my mother, Cheryl Kirk, she loves QVC to this day. She won't get on Amazon, but she loves QVC.
Lock and Lock, give me the weird lady with the damn headband and she's got ducks all over her shit. Sign me up. In the Kitchen with David. Like,
duck shit.
I remember as a kid watching it, like late night or something.
Ducks.
And I didn't understand, like, I guess I did understand, like, you're telling me I only have 10 minutes to get this deal?
Right.
Like, that's it?
Wait, and then you'll throw in a second Thigh Master? Are you kidding me?
And the price could go down? What if I wait a little bit? Will the price go down even more?
Yeah.
Like, holy shit. Like, talk about knowing your audience.
Yeah.
You know.
You gotta be kidding. It's only $20 shipping and handling? Oh, my God.
4 easy payments? Fuck me.
Good old COD, cash on delivery.
I don't even know when that became a thing, but anyway, we're really
that didn't last long. It could not have lasted long. What cash on delivery? I don't have anything.
I think I own Universal Music Group, a little COD on a few albums.
God.
Columbia?
BMG.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. God, I definitely
7 CDs for a penny?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, cash on delivery.
What a deal.
I remember you had to tape the penny to the application, and then you mailed it in.
Yep.
All this for a penny?
So yeah, and Harris got his wedding ring on the QVC, so that's kind of fun. There were some other good scenes in the movie. I guess
Sure.
I don't really know how this relates to anything, but I don't know. I feel like at some point we usually talk about some things that we liked in the movie, like the kid throwing the shit on the clean laundry. I distinctly remember that when I read the book, and I was so happy that it made, because you think, oh well, a kid throwing shit on the windows, or whatever. Like that's going to be. That you could easily cut that out.
Sure.
And I'm so glad they didn't, because it made me so happy. And I loved the way that the two ladies, like, murdered each other.
Yeah.
That was so cool. And it was, honestly, I think it was perfectly well done, the way that they did it.
It was shot well. Yep. The concept was great.
And I had a note there about Brian Rusk, because you were talking about throwing the shit on the linens.
Yep.
But the one where he's throwing the apples through the windows... Yes. What a fun day on set that must have been for that kid.
Our kid just go fucking nuts.
Right, throw some apples through some windows. However old this kid is, hey,
14,
throw some apples at this house.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in at this age.
By the way, he had really good form.
Yeah.
Like, now, I didn't know, like, was he supposed to be a baseball player? Is that why, like, Ed Harris puts it together?
No, it's implied that his father and him have this joint thing, and he recently loses his father. Or is his father involved? I'm mixing up. So
yeah,
makes sense to why he's a Mickey Mantle fan.
So I'm mixing up.
Is
so there's a problem.
So there's
a real problem.
Which is weird. Like, why change it?
It is weird.
So do you remember? I think it's the Panasonic camera, the point and shoot, and it's like I think it's called the Dog or the Viewfinder. Every time he takes a picture, the dog gets closer and closer in the picture until the dog gets let out of the picture.
Okay.
This is a Stephen King short story, I think.
Reminiscent of the hedges in The Shining.
Right. I have a problem with discerning because it's the same sort of thing. Like, somebody tricks the kid into buying the camera, and then the father is associated with it so that they stop the dog. And for the life of me, mixing up the two, was it in this or was it in that other story?
Yeah.
Because it's very similar.
Well, they did change some stuff around for this, which is fine. Because again, in looking at it just from a movie standpoint, I really think that they did a good job of like showing how it wasn't just, it was a rib on somebody else that put the heat on somebody else that put the heat on somebody else. And it was really well done that it never went back to... I did think it was kind of, in a vacuum, it looks kind of weird that everybody would just go from having a prank pulled on them to immediately wanting to murder the other person. It did escalate a little quickly, but still really great.
So, that's the one thing that unfortunately doesn't come across. Like, I see things like Needful Things, Cujo, Stand By Me, Bag of Bones, all of these Castle Rock books or stories are so connected in one larger thing that the lines over what was and wasn't is kind of rough for me. And so, like, there's a whole lot of, well, Ace Merrill, who's a part of the
Stand By Me,
Needful Things and Stand By Me,
yeah.
But we don't get to see it in this movie, has a bigger thing because his uncle's a piece of shit, and his uncle's in Cujo, and he's a piece of shit. And so there's this connectivity. The deputy is the one who gets mauled by Cujo in the story of Cujo. Like, it all interconnects, and unfortunately, I think if you...
Is it this young deputy? Whatever,
yes.
Ridgwick?
Yeah,
Ridgwick. Yeah, he's the one who gets killed by Cujo at the end.
Yeah, Roy McKinnon. Yeah. So, unfortunately, as we were talking long form, if they would have made Castle Rock, Cujo, Needful Things, Bag of Bones, so on and so forth, this interconnecting universe, I think that Castle Rock's fine. Season 1 of Castle Rock is fine on its own. Yep. It's fantastic. I love what they did with it. But if they were like Season 2, Needful Things, Cujo, whatever, I'd have been like, yes, absolutely. Whatever happened, the body, all in Castle Rock, sign me up. Yep. This is 2 seasons.
I think that's what it was originally supposed to be, but then they went off the rails with
it. And so, like, that's the hardest part for me is going, okay, Needful Things is this, and then things from... Because I'm a Stephen King lore guy, right? I am the grand
universe.
I am the grand universe and how it all interconnects. Stephen King kind of guy. That's always how my brain has worked. I like these big multiverse things.
See, and I don't mind things separated.
Yeah.
They don't always have to connect for me. So that has never been a huge appeal for me. I like it in some cases, but I don't
need it.
Yeah. Right. If that wasn't a thing for it, but I think that's what makes me most excited about King, is that he...
There could be. Right. I like there could be an Easter egg here.
Right. The fact that he's so well in how he versus stories and whatnot, that he set the pieces into motion as he went along.
I like that it was intentional with King. And that it wasn't just discovered like, hey, was this meant to be this way?
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that it was intentional, so that makes me like it more.
And so, like, I think there's Needful Things I absolutely do adore. It's my number 2 out of the 3.
That we're covering for this series, okay.
But I think as a whole, because there's so much more that needs to be fleshed out, like we had said, 700
Again, though, we're looking at it just from a movie standpoint, and from a movie standpoint, I thought that they told me a story, and they were pretty succinct with the characters.
Absolutely.
And everything kind of lined up.
Yeah.
And so... Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was actually really well done.
Yeah.
We were talking about Norris Ridgwick, the deputy who had his name on all of those citations that Amanda Plummer popped over J.J. Walsh's house.
I'm glad you got here.
The fucking citations made me laugh out loud. In particular, the one that said "horse fucker."
Okay.
Horse fucker is the one that made me. I had to stop the movie.
I also wrote a quote on one of those citations that's. He wrote him a citation for being the biggest cocksucker in Castle Rock. There was also another one for cornholing your mother.
Roy McKinnon is an underrated actor. Fun fact with Uncle Doo: he's the soldier that releases Captain Trips in the miniseries.
The actor is the one who does it. Okay, in the old one or the new one?
In the old. Okay. 92.
Okay. Yeah, that's...
And, of course, Ed Harris is the general from The Stand from...
Right.
And while we're on the topic of Norris Ridgwick, because when he puts his hand in the gift bag with the rat trap and the rat trap snaps on it, the other cop looks over and says to him, "You should have read the card first."
That's a great line.
Yeah.
That's a great line. I love a good quote.
Yeah.
I don't have any quotes written down other than "horse fucker," which
what a quote
is so perfect. So one of the things that I actually didn't like, first of all, I should say that I love a scene in a movie where somebody puts together, they put the pieces together by seeing old newspaper footage or old there's lines and graphs and string on pins.
Nelson Mandela,
right? All of it. So I love that. So he comes across the stack of newspapers, right?
Yeah.
And it actually really bothered me that they try to pin every historic tragedy on Leland Gaunt.
Yeah.
Like, all of them. And I was like, really? Like, okay, you're the devil, I get it. But it had to be everything.
Yeah.
Which, then conversely, at the end, he throws out that random date, right, of like, oh, be aware of, 2052 or whatever he says. I forget what the date is.
I really like that, actually.
I actually really like that aspect. In hindsight, you're like, oh, 9/11 happens, but they didn't know that because it was 8 years away, which is crazy that it was only 8 years away.
Yeah,
that's weird, right? 8 years ago, think about 8 years ago, where we sit now, that was, 2015 or something?
That's wild.
Like, that, I love time, and shit like that drives me, like, it blows my mind. So, anyway, I thought it was a little weird that, like, every historic tragedy was him. I don't know. Maybe it's a little thing.
No, sure.
Maybe it's not a thing. It just, like, kind of made me go, aw.
It was a bit funky. Yeah, for things that I didn't like, I guess, we can kind of progress towards the end here. And I don't think it ended nearly as well as it started.
No.
I really dug the setup. Honestly, I really dug the whole first half. And then it kind of fumbled a little bit, and then it kind of tried to get its footing.
It did rush. It felt rushed.
Yeah.
That's where I'm interested in seeing if the 3 hour
is better.
Yeah.
Now but I don't see them wrapping it up any differently.
Sure.
I don't know if it could feel any different, but still, I'm down. If we get our hands on the copy, then I'm going to watch it. Yeah.
So famously, the book. Here we go again. But the book ends much like The Stand ends, where I don't know if you remember this, but the book ends where Leland Gaunt is in another small town, opening another small store.
Yeah, I remember that.
And how simple would that have been to just shoot in this movie? Like, the credits start rolling, and I'm like, wait, how do we, like, he doesn't go on? Like, that would have been, it would have taken half a day to just even show a storefront. You don't even need him. Just show a storefront in another small town and in some
a little bit of wheat field behind you.
Something.
Yeah.
Like, just show that he's somewhere.
Turn the camera to the other side of the street and shoot a window.
Yeah, exactly. And it could be, like, Arizona. Who cares? And just slap a new name on the... I forget what it's in the book. It's like Answered Prayers or something similar, like, is the name of the... that really... I remembered that. And, it was so... jarring to not have it at the end of the movie.
Sure.
And again, I don't dislike the ending of the movie.
No.
Because he lives, he goes on, and like to your point, it's that what could happen, like, the mystery continues.
Sure.
And I like that.
Yeah.
But to your point, Rand, I agree. It felt rushed. It was like, oh, everything's set up, and then boom, the whole town explodes.
Payoff.
Like, wait, slow down.
Right, the payoff. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, Ed Harris, you weren't embezzling money from the town, and yeah, everything's okay. We're fine now because now we know. Yeah, it's like,
right.
Okay.
But we weren't just a piece of shit to everybody in the last 72 hours.
right.
And Ed Harris, you're right. We're going to be better. Yeah.
We're going to be half of our town's economy is not ruined because half of the town is dead, including our mayor.
Right. In 72 hours.
Right.
Yeah. But all right. Well, I think we've exhausted this.
Okay, so post conceived, will you see this movie again?
I'm excited for the 3-hour version. Honestly, I'm going to pick up this 4K, and I want to see it.
I'll watch this whenever it's on.
I will definitely watch this again, and I also might pick up the 4K. We'll see.
And I actually want to reread the novel again now for a third time.
Oh yeah, I did enjoy this for all of it, with all of its faults. I enjoyed it.
What's your rating?
I went with a 6.5.
Ooh.
Honestly, because I think that every time I watched it immediately after reading it, it was probably a 5 for me. But having that independent view made it go way higher because I don't have that direct, like, oh, they screwed that up thing. It's just, oh, here's a story. You told me a story. It's fine. I went 6.5.
So I also gave it a 6.5.
Wow!
Holy cow!
On the nose.
I am the Randy Kirk of this. I gave it a 7. I like all of the parts as a whole, like the small parts as a whole. It's fun for me.
It didn't feel 7 to me but yeah, I can see why you would have.
Yeah, I agree.
I think there's a bit of nostalgia. There's a bit of like, you know, there's a special place for
this being a first time for me and giving it a 6.5. I feel like that makes it a pretty damn good movie. If I had seen this movie when I was 10, I would think probably 7.5.
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. I realize that we're not doing this, but I would give the novel an 8.
Oh yeah,
like personally, but. Again, maybe I'm misremembering, but I remember really liking the novel.
It's been a long time. I would probably put the novel at a 7.
It's been
a long time.
I did this thing. We'll talk about this in the next episode, but I held off the Institute to listen. I do audiobook because it's the only way I can.
You have like ADD, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I can read, but because of
breaking news,
but the way that my work allows me to, I can just sit for 6 hours and listen to an audiobook in a week with no issues.
Got it.
And so, you know, audiobook is the way that I consume books now, except for fairy tale, which I did both.
Well, whether you folks out there are listening via audiobook or reading the actual novel, we hope you've watched the movie and will listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, on every sort of major podcast streaming network, or perhaps on the YouTube, or follow us on YouTube in particular. Please comment below. Tell us your thoughts.
Hit us on our socials and on our YouTube.
We're all on
about
Twitter.
You, Stephen King. What do you love about the universe of the books, or whatever? Just
follow the Twitter account. We love interacting with people on the Twitter.
Yeah, we try to stay as active on the socials as we possibly can. So yeah, if you reach out to us, we'll get right back to you.
Yeah.
Or just tell us we're a bunch of motherfuckers. We don't, just tell us something. I don't know. That's fine.
Let's find out how many listeners we have.
Fuck you,
everybody, all of our listeners right now, reach out.
Fun fact with Uncle This. Go fuck yourself, fun fact, Uncle Duke. Yeah, just send
Here's
it
a fucking fun fact.
Yeah, right. You're an asshole.
You're the worst. Yeah, sign me up for that.
All right. Until next time, folks, when we bring you Dr. Sleep, stay tuned.
Nighty night.
See you, everybody.